Shut up and sit down.
The term Dalit literature, English literature essay. Essay on the term Dalit literature, English literature for students and children in English. Dalit literature is the literary form of the Dalits and by the Dalits to depict the story and experiences of the Dalits. Although not a new word, the term Dalit is known to be used first in the 1930s as a Marathi and Hindi translation of depressed classes, a term that the British gave for the presently known scheduled caste. In the 1970s, the group Dalit Panthers, the social organization of the Ambedkarite group, revived the term again and expanded the reference to include the scheduled tribes, women, poor peasants, and the others being exploited both economically and politically, and also in the name of religious affairs. Thus, Dalit is not the term for a caste, it is the symbol of change and revolution. The emergence of modern Dalit literature began in 1958 when the Maharashtra Dalit Sahitya Sangh led the first conference. Dalit literature is the mainstream of Indian writing in English or any other Indian regional language. This form of literary source is about the oppressed classes and caste across India. The tradition of Dalit literature and writing can be traced to the 11th century writer Kekillar. Modern Dalit literature and writings are founded on the ideological sites and works of Ambedkar, the Indian Constitution's chief architect. The literature ties irreparably to the Dalit liberation movements in various parts of the country. Dalit literature marked its significant presence in the 1960s, initially in Marathi literature and then in Hindi, Tamil, and Malayalam. Further, it also emerged in the English language in poems, novels, autobiographies, and short stories from Dalit expressions, significant genres. The Dalit writings eventually emerged as a collective voice, questioning through social realities articulation of various writing kinds that either made the groups of Indian society visible or distorted their identity. Traditionally, Dalits were beyond the pale of the caste system or Varna system and were initially considered Panchama, the fifth group. Beyond the fourfold division of the Indian people, Dalits were earlier not privileged enough to let even their shadow fall on any non-Dalit caste, were considered untouchables and had the job to sweep the grounds. Dalits were also prohibited from entering the temple or drawing from the same wells as used by other castes and lived in segregated neighborhoods outside the majority of the societies. However, not all the members of the upper caste or the priest were similar, and a few of them also warmed and greeted the Dalits. A real life example is a Hindu priest Dhyaneshwar who was demoted to the Dalit status in the 13th century and continued to compose the Dhyaneshwari commentary literature from the Bhagavad Gita. Another Brahmin who was excommunicated, was Eknath during the Bhakti period when he fought for the untouchable Dalits' rights. There are some examples of prominent Dalit priests like Chokhamela of the 14th century. He also became the first rewarded Dalit poet of India. Then came the earliest historical people who rejected the caste system, and they were Gautam Buddha and Mahavir. Their teachings then became the religions Buddhism and Jainism, respectively. The earliest reforms in Hinduism happened in the medieval period when the movement encouraged the inclusion and participation of Dalits in the 19th century. The Arya Samaj, Brahma Samaj, and Ramakrishna missions participated actively in the emancipation of the Dalits. Dalit literature artistically portrays the sorrows, slavery, tribulations, degradation, poverty, and ridicule endured by the Dalits of Indian society. The Dalit literature and writing were required to pass three phases of consideration from the mainstream literature part: erasure, containment, and assertion. In the introduction of Limbale's concepts, Alok Mukherjee also stated that Dalit literature witnessed the same isolation from the mainstream literature and writing resources. The entire Hindu caste system of India tried eschewing it at the same time when they utilized it. Indian Dalits were previously not considered part of the caste system and held the nationality until the Hindus finally admitted them as the nationalist movement's part. Dalit literature also marks the wholesale rejection of tradition, aesthetics, language, and Brahminical literature concerns that used to carry the signs of caste based cultural and social order in the Indian society. Even after all the isolation, Dalit literature established the tradition with anti caste and untouchable believers and thinkers like Gautam Buddha, Kabir, Jyotiba Phule, and B.R. Ambedkar. The main subject of Dalit literature's content has been the untouchables and the authentic experience and sufferings of Dalits in Indian society. The expertise in these literary sources is about a single identity, but it means the universality of the collective experience of the entire group. Neither the rasa, evocation of emotions, in the Indian literature, nor the preoccupation with Western literary theories' identity is considered adequate to explain the Dalits' unalterable experience. Their experience is unalterable, as unlike the poor, slaves, and the colonized clans, they cannot reverse their situations if provided with necessary assistance. As Dalits were considered the outcast, they cannot do anything to change or undo it. They were born in that, and only their death can liberate them from it. Dalit literature is moreover considered a mimetic one in nature. The authors and writers of Dalit literature and writings use mythic figures from Hindu religious texts like Eklavya, Shambhuka, Surpanakha, and Ravana for portraying the current atrocities. In doing so, they were able to spot the continuation of the subordination tradition of their kind. Dalit literature is not meant for romanticizing anything. They portray the realistic experiences of who the Dalits are. Thus, These literary sources are not pleasing for all types of readers. Dalit literature is often described to have the purpose of a revolutionary, liberatory, and transformational form. Moreover, apart from the bhakti poetry of the Dalit literature group, one cannot spot any other source with devotional content among the group. Thus, the Dalit literature does not entertain the more good sentiments and refined gestures. It only expresses the power struggle in a larger establishment. The Dalit movement of Ambedkar was the culmination of an only anti-caste campaign that started far ago in various parts of Indian society. However, only the emergence of Buddhism and Jainism emerged as the individual religions end the caste system and consider everyone unanimous. Buddhism emerged during a protest against Hinduism and mainly its caste system, rituals, and the violence of Vedic sacrifices that it followed. Then appeared the Bhakti movement, and Buddhism's anti caste tendency started from the 18th century across South India. The Bhakti period's prominent poets are Kabir, Chaitanya, Ramananda, Mahaprabhu, Guru Nanak, Mirabai, and Kabir Das. They also tried reforming Hinduism to get rid of casteism and its stigma. Sikhism also emerged with the Bhakti movement. Buddhism, although died later with the contain all move of Hinduism, Ambedkar and his group again went for it as a casteless religion. Dalits were earlier not even allowed to enter the religious places of the other groups of Indian society. Even though they had their segregated places of worship, the first upper caste temple opened in 1928 to welcome all Dalits. The temple to initiate was the Lakshmi temple in Wardha. When it comes to the Indian Hindu society, the status of Dalits associates mainly with their occupation, as it was considered impure, like the leather work, butchering, animal carcasses, and waste removal. Dalits also worked as manual laborers and cleaned the streets, latrines, and sewers, which was considered impure, and due to that, they were deemed untouchable. However, India enacted and implemented several laws and social activities aiming to protect and improve the social and economic conditions of the Dalit population. India also elected K.R. Narayana, a Dalit leader, as the nation's president in a democratic manner. However, presently there is no such party and act like the UN untouchability, and even its observance is now considered a criminal offense. Still, even after all the advancements and the end of untouchability, there are fewer educational opportunities for Dalits in Kerala. Dalit literature, English literature essay is essential to spread awareness about what Dalit literature is, including it and who it involves. The Dalits of the Indian society earlier faced lots of suppression and were also excluded from various Hindu community activities and were prohibited from staying with the other caste, entering the temples, or touching them. Thus emerged the Dalit literature created by Dalits of the Indian society to express the situation and sufferings of Dalits in the Indian society. The term Dalit literature, English literature essay is an essential educational and awareness resource for the students and the adults of modern Indian society.